Hello friends, my name is AJ and welcome to my channel. This is going to be part 2 for the in-depth review for Unit 6 of AP Computer Science, which is arrays. So this particular practice test, which I made for you, can find in the find a link to it in the description below, as well as it'll take you to a GitHub page which has all the other units as well. And this particular practice exam has 10 questions for the multiple choice and 2 free response questions. It's an A part and a B part to one question, but pretty much it's 2 separate questions. All right, so without further ado, let's get started with number 1. All right, so it asks, which of the following are true about arrays? Okay, which of the following are true about arrays? The first thing it says, all the elements inside of an array must be of the same type or related types. Actually, I'm going to highlight here. So must be of the same type or related types. This is definitely true right here. This is true. All right, now we look at the second part. So it says, when creating an array with the keyword new, Booleans are initialized to true. This is incorrect. Booleans are actually initialized, right? The type, or I think I called it in my review the default. The default value for Booleans when initializing an array using the new keyword is actually false. It's not true, it is false. Okay? And then the next part, it says the first element of an array is located at the index of 1. This is also false. Remember, it is supposed to be at index 0 because when we talk about indexes in arrays, the first value is at index 0. So out of all my choices, only one can be correct, and that is A1 only. All the other ones are incorrect. Okay? So I'm going to just erase these X's. All right. So then number 2, it asks, which of the following is the output of the code below? So I have int, my array equals new int, and then here I have 5, right? And remember, 5 is referring to my length of my array. Then over here, I have system.out.println myArray.length. So myArray.length is going to refer back to the length when I created the actual array, and that is 5. Therefore, the output of my code is going to be D, which is 5. Okay, for number 3, it says, which of the following is the output of the code below? So I says myArray equals new double, and so I'm creating a new double array with 3 as my length. So I can just draw the array up here. The first one is 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, just like that. Because remember, the default value when creating a double array is 0.0. Okay, then here I have my array 0 equals 2.0. So what this means is, remember, I look for now the value at index 0. So this right here, let me do this in a little bit of a different color. This is at index 0, this is at index 1, and this is at index 2. So here, I'm now changing my value at index 0 to 2.0 instead of 0.0. Then I am changing the value or the element inside of my array at index 1 from 0.0 to 4.6. And now what I'm printing out is the value at index 1, which is 4.6, minus the value at position 2, which is 0.0. So this is going to equal out 4.6 right here as my output, which is going to be A. All right, so now we have which of the following is the output of the code below. Now, in my particular video for the kind of talking about traversing loops or traversing arrays using loops, I use for loops as my example, not while loops. But if you remember back from Unit 4, I talk about that you can always convert a for loop back to a while loop. So in this case, what we're really doing is we're just trying to figure out, what does this actually look like here? So the first thing is I'm starting out the value of my counter as the length over here of my array, right? And so what I'm doing is I'm saying while I is greater than or equal to 0, then I print out right? I print out the value, and then I print out a space, and then I decrement. But if you look at this, right, if my initial value of I is 3, and I try to print out the value at index 3, well, how can we do that? Because if you remember, if you look at my array, the index here is 0, index of here is 1, and index here is 2. So you can't actually have there is no index 3. So when I'm looking for this value to print out, it doesn't exist. It's going to give me an array out of bounds exception. So therefore, there is an error is the correct answer, because I cannot access something that doesn't exist. Okay, now to number 5. It says, what is the length of the myintegers array initialized in the code above? All right, so let's look at this. And remember, once we create my array, the length does not change. So I can simply take this line and figure out what the length is. I don't have to worry about this for loop just yet. All right. So the first thing is I set my value of a to 8. So a equals 8. Then I multiply it by 2. So now a is equal to 16. Then I say a is equal to a times 3 divided by 5. So this would be a equals 16 times 3 and then divided by 5. So a is equal to, and if you want me to show the work, I can, right? This is going to be 18. This is 48. 48 divided by 5. Now, if you remember, because my data type is integer, when I actually divide, it truncates off the decimals. So if I do, and I can just type this into my calculator here if I don't want to do the math, 48 divided by 5 is equal to 9.6. But remember, because I'm doing integer division, right, these decimals truncate off. So now my a is equal to 9. Okay? And then I say here, my integers array is equal to a new integer array with the length of 9. And my question here says, what is the length of the array initialized above? So that will be B9. That is the correct answer. All right, so now it says, what are all of the values of the array after the code is executed? All right, so let's jump into this one. If we know that the value is starting or the length is 9, that means there's going to be 9 elements. So I guess I may make my marker a little bit smaller and kind of start it here. Because I'm using an integers array, all my values are 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. Those should be 9. Let me count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yep, that looks good. And what I'm going to do is, just for the sake of, ease, and if you're always, a little bit confused on the indexes, it does not ever hurt to write them out. It's actually more helpful to write them out and to prevent a silly mistake than to kind of just wing it, right? So in this case, those are my indexes from 0 to 8. All right. Now I have a for loop, and the first thing I do is I say for in I equals a minus 1. Now remember, a represents 9 right here. I say this is set to 9. So it's saying that I is equal to 8. Right? Because it's, and I guess I'll write it in this color. This is equal to 8 because it's 9 minus 1. And then what I'm doing is I'm pretty much looping every time. So I'm going to say here, the value at the 8th index, which is right here, is going to equal 8 modulus 4, right? Well, what is 8 modulus 4? 8 modulus 4, because it divides evenly and modulus division gets the remainder is 0. So the value of my, the value of the element at the 8th index, right, with an index value of 8 as its location, that will stay as 0. Then my value here, because I'm at the end of my loop, I decrement it by 1. This becomes 7. Now at the value in the 7th index, I do 7 modulus 4. And 7 modulus 4 is going to be 3. Because if I were to do 4 divided by 7, this gives me 1 right, with the remainder of 3. And it's the remainder that I am looking for the modulus division. That's what it returns. So now the value here of the 7th position, or the 7th position, is set to 3. And again, I want to be careful when I'm saying 7th position. Remember, I'm not talking about the 7th value. I'm talking about the value that's at the 7th index, okay? Now I can move on. This is going to decrement again to 6 because I reached the end of my loop here. And now I'm going to do 6, right? Looking at the 6th value now, and I'm setting that to 6 modulus 4. 6 modulus 4 is going to be 2, right? Because 4 goes into 6 evenly once with 2 as a remainder. So now my value here changes to 2. Now I decrement again, and now my I is now set to 5. So I'm now going to look at the I'm going to look at the element at the 5th position, and now I do 5 modulus 4. And that's going to be 1, because if I were to divide 4 into 5, 4 goes into 5 evenly once with the remainder of 1. So the value at the 5th index is now 1. And I guess I can make that a little bit easier to see. That's 1 right there. All right, now my value decrements to 4. Okay, and now I can do 4. I'm now looking at the 4th index, and I'm going to do 4 modulus 4. Well, 4 goes into 4 evenly once with 0 as a remainder, so the value is going to stay at 0 here. Now my I changes to 3 as it decrements, and now I will now look at the actual element at the 3rd index, right? And so now I'm going to do 3 modulus 4, which 4 goes into 3 0 times its remainder of 3, and this value is going to be 3. This is going to decrement to 2, so now I do 2 modulus 4. Right, I'm now looking again at the 2nd index. Now looking 2 modulus 4. 4 goes into 2 0 times with the remainder of 2, so my value is set to 2. I will decrement now to 1. And I will now do 1. I'll look at the value in the 1st index, and 1 modulus 4 is going to be simply 1, because 4 goes into 1 0 times with the remainder of 1. So the value here will be 1, just like that. And now my I value decrements to 0. So now I'm looking at the 0 index right here. And I'm now going to do 0 modulus 4. So 4 is going to go into 0, right? Only 0 times with 0 as a remainder. So my value will stay at 0. Now that was and obviously here, now my condition is no longer true, so my loop doesn't repeat. That was a really long explanation, but I think that because this is the question that kind of is the most involved, I really wanted to physically go in depth with you so you actually understand what happens inside of my array. And so now this is going to be the final value right here of my array once I'm done. 0, 1, 2, 3, 0, 1, 2, 3, 0. And if I look here, that will be A. Make this a little bit bigger again. A. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 0, 1, 2, 3, 0. All right, I'm now going to look at number 7, okay? This one is actually not as bad as it looks. So, don't worry too much. It says, which of the following is the output of the code below? Again, first thing I do is I create a new double array with a length of 4. So there are 4 elements inside of it, just like that. And now my increment is set to 1. Now I'm doing a for loop, and this time my for loop is actually going to be a for each loop this time. So the first thing I do is I print out A plus my increment. So my first value, again, I can look at my indexes here, 0, 1, 2, 3. Actually, I don't even need to really look at indexes because I'm not really working with indexes in the problem, but I am looking at the first value. All right, so I'm going to do 0.0 plus 1.0, and that's going to result in 1.0. All right, Now my increment increases by 2. So it's going to change from 1 to 3 now. And my next value is going to be 0 again. So I do 0, 0.0 plus 3.0 equals 3.0. I can do it again. This would now be an index of, or the increment will change to 5. 0.0 plus 5.0 this time results in 7.0. Sorry, did I do that? No, this is supposed to be 5.0 because 0 plus 5 is 5, not 7, everyone, not 7. All right, so then 0.0 plus, this will change to 7, 7.0 goes to 7.0. My final output would be 1357, just like that. So I'll choose C, which is the correct answer, okay? All right, so now we get to number 8. Which of the following print out the last element of the array? If I look at this, right, these 3 things here, where I talk about array.length and -1, those are just not correct. So we can cross these out. We never access, these will both produce errors. And then the only thing that's true, and I talked about this in the video as well, in the last review video, to find the last element, the index of the last element is array length -1. So 2 only, B would be correct for this particular problem. All right, now we're going to look at number 9, and this one has multiple loops in it. So this is also going to be one that's a little bit, possibly a little bit more difficult. All right, so I'm creating an integer array with a length of 5, so I can make it a little bit smaller here. 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, okay? And now I say I equals 0. Now this is going to repeat for the length of my array, okay? And then it increments by 1, and j is going to increment until it's equal to 3. It's going to equal to 3. So what happens here is I first have my I is equal to 0, so I'm looking at the first element inside of my array, and I'm adding to it j plus I. So this would be 1 plus 0, just like that. So what's going to happen here is I have this value will be now 1. Now I have to repeat the inner loop again. So I now add to this value 2 plus 0. So now this will be 3. Okay, now my j is going to change to 3. So now I set it to 3 plus 0, or I add 3 plus 0 to it, and now my value for my first item will be 6. So knowing my first value is going to be 6, I already know the answer because, we know multiple choice tests. If we look at the first value, 3, 6, 9, 12, and we know it's my first value I got is 6, then obviously the correct answer is going to be B, right? Let's not fool ourselves. But we can, just for the sake, do one more because I think it could be helpful. So what I'm going to do is my value of I is now 1. And so my value here at index 1 is going to be 1 plus 1. So this is going to be 2. Now my value of j is going to change to 2. Now I do 2 plus 2. 1 plus 2 is equal to 3. And then I do 2 plus 3. That's going to be 5. Right? And then I'm going to do here, my value of j is going to change to 3. I do 1 plus 3 equals 4, and now I add 4 to my value here, which is going to be 9. So you can see that this would be 9, 12, 15, 18, if you actually worked all of it through. And then the last question, number 10, which of the following is the best loop in order to traverse an array backwards? Keyword here, backwards. Okay, so obviously the first 2 answers I can immediately cross off, as the first one I can cross off is while loops. While loops are never going to be the most efficient for arrays. Then you have do while loops. We did not talk extensively about do while loops, and that will not be correct either. And really, what you're going to be narrowing down to is between for loops and for each loops. But the correct answer is a for loop. If you remember, I talked about in the last video, For loops are the best for going for each loops are best going forward, but not necessarily backwards. Only for loops can really go, and while loops too can go backwards. But of course, the question is asking for the best way to do it, and that would be for loops. For loops are the most efficient. All right, so that is the end of the multiple choice section. Hopefully everybody did well. I think the main two challenge questions in this were definitely probably number 9 and number 6, simply because that required a lot of actually keeping track of numbers. But even number 9, if you knew the first value and you were able to solve that perfectly fine, it was actually not that bad. Now we're going to go to the free response section, which is section 2. And there are 2 parts to this one question. The first one, write the method highest number, which returns the highest number inside of the actual numbers array. Okay, this should say highest number here. Highest number. I changed the actual name of the thing. So in your in what you see, then when you download the actual practice test to see, you will see highest number there. It's just a typo on my copy. All right, so what I want to do is I want to return the highest number. So this is what I did to do this. What I did is I set my brackets up. Then the first thing I want to do is think about it. If I want to find my highest number, then I should compare it to the lowest number possible, right? Because if it's greater than the lowest value, then I replace it, right? I replace it as a low value to check for the rest of them. So what I can do is I can actually say int highest number equals integer dot min value. Remember, I'm bringing back this integer dot min value. Now this is going to give me the lowest number possible. Then all I have to do is I can simply say for int val, and I can use my colon numbers. So I'm creating a for each loop. Inside of my brackets, I can say if my value is greater than highest num, right? Then I'm simply going to say highest num equals val. Just like that. And then the last thing I need to do is I need to return highest num. And I need to do this because it says in my question returns, right? It does return the highest value. So I actually have to return it using the return keyword. All right, so that is actually all of the code for the question. I set the lowest value and then I just compare. I go through every value and check. If it's greater than what the highest number is, replace it. And keep replacing it until you find the highest one that nothing else can top. Okay? Now we have write the method average number, which returns the average of the numbers inside of the given numbers array. Now, if you remember, there was actually, I believe on the Unit 1 practice test, there was actually an average question. This is the way to do averages using arrays. Very, very easy. All I have to do is I need to take my sum, because remember, all averages is it's a sum divided by the number, right? It's the sum of all the values. I guess I can use the fancy sum notation. It's the sum of all the values divided by the number of values. That's what a average is. So what I can do is I can say double sum equals 0.0, and then I can do for double num in numbers. I can say sum plus equals num. So all this is doing is looping through every value inside of my numbers array and simply adding it to my sum. Then all I have to do now is I can say my average, so double average is equal to my sum divided by numbers dot length, because numbers dot length is the total number of values there actually were, right? It's actually very, very easy. And I've needed to make sure that I have a double here so that when I'm dividing, it actually gives me a double. It doesn't truncate off decimals, because if you look in the question, it does want me to return a double type. And then lastly, I can say return average. And that is it for the question. This is also a very simple question because all you have to do is just add the numbers together and then divide by the length. It's not too long. It's not too many lines of code, especially compared to the last FRK you did for Unit 5, which was actually writing an entire class. That was pretty long. This one was not as bad, but it really helps you get a core understanding of arrays and also using for each loops as well. All right, so those are the answers to the practice test. Again, the practice test was in the description below. And if you need to review on any specific topic, then you can check out part 1, which actually goes over all of these different parts in detail. All right, that is it for the video. If you like the video, please like and subscribe for more content. And as always, thanks for watching.